Hi everyone, it's Barbara and I'm so excited to be participating in this year's Crafty Holiday series from My Favorite Things. Today I'm going to show you a few stocking stuffers from super easy to more involved, but all easy and fun to do. First up, a candy bar slider. This slider will fit a 1.55 ounce Hershey bar. If you're going to use a different size, you'll need to adjust. I'm going to use Happy Holidays stamp set in Dynamics, interactive label stamp set, and stitched fishtail sentiment strips. We have a piece of craft cardstock here now, and it's cut 7 inches by 6 inches. We're going to score at 2 3/4 inches and 5.5 inches on the 6-inch side. And then we're going to fold at our score lines gently. The first thing we're going to do is draw our ornament strings, because that's much easier to do before we assemble it. And before I do that, I want to make sure I know where my slot is going to be. So I laid my die out, and then I'm laying out my ornaments just to get a feel for where they're going to be. And then I make a little mark. And now I can go back with my Copic multi-liner and a ruler and put in my black lines for that will connect to the ornaments. So I don't want to make this terribly heavy, but it definitely needs to show up. So I have a really fine multi-liner, so I'm going over it a couple of times. Now that that's done, I can assemble my pouch. And to do this, I'm going to use 1/4 inch score tape. You can see how that's going to go together. I just put it on the long side. You can use any kind of adhesive that you want. Doesn't really matter. I just like the score tape. And then we're going to put it across the bottom, because we're going to need to make this into a pouch, because the candy bar needs to not fall out. So my score tape is in place, and I'm going to remove the liner and put it together. And now we have our pouch. As you can see, it is closed at one end and open at the other. Now I need to cut my ribbon slots, and for that I'm using this little die from Tag Builder Blueprints 5. And I'll be right back. It makes a really nice slot. Now we're going to insert our candy bar, and to do this we wrap ribbon all around it. So you'll need to measure your ribbon to go around your candy bar, and then enough to tie a bow afterwards. So we slide it in, and then we insert our ribbon through the slots from the inside out. And as you can see, we just pull the candy bar out with the ribbon. It's so cute. I love these things. And now we're done with this for a while, so I'm going to set that aside. I've colored up my doggy and my ornaments, and now we're going to do the sentiment so we can put it all together. I'm using some black licorice cardstock, and I'm going to heat emboss the sentiment. So when I use the sentiment strip in my MISTI, I like to use some temporary tape so it won't move around on me. And I also like to trial my sentiment to make sure it is straight before I do it the final time. And to do this, I just use some black licorice ink. Even though it's on black, the wet shows up so you know where it is. So sometimes it takes a couple of trials, but I think it's right now. So now I'm going to use my Embossing Magic and stamp my sentiment with Versamark. And I like to do it twice to get a really good coverage. And then we're going to heat emboss with white detail embossing powder. I don't know about you guys, but even though I use the anti-static pouch, I always get some stray white dots when I use white embossing powder. So I don't know if you can see them or not, but they're there. So in order to fix this, I just use my black Copic multi-liner and blot out those little white stray marks and clean my sentiment up, and it is good to go. So now we're going to adhere this to our candy bar slider pouch with some foam tape. I decided to use foam tape for this rather than adhering directly to the pouch because it is just a little rounded, and I was concerned that my sentiment strip and the image would not lie flat like it would on a box shape. So this way it gets a little bit of ease there. So now I'm going to take my little doggy on and my ornaments, and we're almost done. The most time consuming part of this is the coloring. I'm a very slow colorer, so I thought I would save you that. Now we're going to tie the bow across the top fairly snugly, but not so much that you're going to pull your candy bar out, in a pretty bow. And we'll be trimming the ends of this because you don't really want a great big long tail bow, just a nice pretty bow. So we'll slant cut the ends, and it's basically done. You really could leave it at this, but I want to put a little tag on it. So I'm using a die from Tag Builder Blueprints 4, and I've shortened it because I have a really tiny little sentiment to stamp. I cut that from Sweet Tooth cardstock, and the eyelet is cut from Wild Cherry cardstock. Just going to glue that on, and then I'm going to stamp my little sentiment that says Pull from Interactive Labels. I love the little cube stamps, ink pads for these tiny sentiments. And now I'm going to tie it on with some hemp cord. And after I trim those ends, we are done. Is that not adorable? Who would not love to get that in a stocking? It just makes me smile. Next up, we're going to do a bookmark. And since bookmarks should be flat, that's what this is. I'm using Tall Tags Duo Dynamics for this, and I'm also using a stamp from Happy Holidays. I'm using one from Snow Globe Sentiments and a couple from Our Story. So this was kind of a mock-up I did just to see if my idea would work, and I was pretty happy with it, so I will use that as a guide. Now, since I'm going to be doing some stamping on here, I'm going to adhere this to my grid paper with temporary tape so it doesn't move. Now I'm going to be using part of the stamp set at a time. So again, the cube ink pads come in so handy. Sorry about the head, but I want to make sure this is lined up. And then I'm cleaning my stamp, and I'm going to stamp the other half of it. You can put some tape over the part that you're not stamping if you want, but this sentiment was large enough that I thought I could get away with just eyeballing it. Now next, I'm going to be splitting up this sentiment from Our Story from Birdie Brown and doing the very same thing, stamping part at a time. And the complete sentiment will say, Christmas greetings from my favorite bookworm. So we're making this a Christmas themed gift, but it's not really Christmas. Does that make sense? Now I'm going to stamp 2 stacks of the books from our story, and I'm going to get them pretty close. It's not perfect, but it's close enough that it works. And I'm going to be coloring those books, but first of all I need to put my string on, and I'm just doing that freehand with a Copic multi-liner. Just, you know, whatever suits you. And then we're going to go in and stamp our little light bulbs, our Christmas light bulbs. And for this I'm using black licorice hybrid ink because I'm going to be coloring the books and the bulbs. So now I'm just going to stamp this several times, and I am going to be putting one right there in the middle of the sentiment because it needs to be, but you'll see in a minute how I deal with that so that it doesn't obscure the sentiment at all. Okay, so we're done stamping now, and we're going to color. So I'm going to speed this really up. I'm going to go ahead and do it because there's not a lot of coloring on this like there was on the doggy. So I'll just go ahead and do this. And I'm going to do all of one color at a time. Like I'm going to do all the red on the books and the light bulb at the same time. Then I'm going to go to the green. I also put a little bit of a white gel pen on the bulb after I'm done coloring for a highlight. It makes all the difference in the world. And for that center one, I'm just using some gray. That's going to be my white light bulb. Some of the older strings of C7 bulbs have a white bulb in it. Some of them don't, but this one does. So I'm doing my books and my light bulb at the same time in each color because I wanted them to coordinate, so I'm using the same colors on the books and the light bulbs, even though they're not, maybe not traditional light bulb colors. So almost done with the books, and then I'm going to ground it, the stack of books, with a neutral. But first I use some gold pen on the hub of the light bulbs. And then I'm grounding my stack of books and just doing a little bit of a light aqua around them to give them some space. Now that's pretty much done. I'm going to add another layer on the back for strength, and I used some craft cardstock for that. So I'm just going to adhere them together. This die makes a perfect bookmark. It is just perfect. And I'm going to put them together. And that gives it a lot more strength inside the book. And we're going to put some ribbon through the slot at the top that will be hanging out of the book, and tie that on with some hemp cord. This really could be done, you could almost mass produce these if you did something that you didn't have to color. They would go really fast. I'm going to trim my ribbon, and it's done. Next up, I'm going to show you a clothespin magnet. And for this, I'm using some Blue Breeze cardstock, and I'm going to stamp the snow from Simply Snowflakes with Versamark, and we're going to heat emboss that with white. You could use pattern paper or polka dot paper, but I like the randomness of the snowflakes, and also once they're embossed they're shiny, so it gives them a little dimension. And since this is so narrow, I thought everything that you could do to add to it was a good idea. So now I'm going to heat emboss my snowflakes. You could do, if you're going to do a bunch of these, you could just do like an A2 size piece of paper and just do all over, and then do it all at one time. Now, next I'm going to trim it to fit my clothespin, and I've put some magnet on the back that is just from the magnet pack that we have in the store to store your dies on. So I'm going to glue this on the front. This is the stamped paper. And I've already trimmed it down. And I just glued the magnets on the back also with the Ranger Multi-Matte Medium. This project goes really, really fast, but I think it is so cute. It'll be just look really great on a refrigerator in the winter time. Now I'm going to tie some silver cord around, and I'm going to put it, I know it's hard for you to see right now, but I'm going to put it through the spring of the clothespin. That will keep it from sliding off, and it doesn't hamper the action of the spring at all. So tie that in a pretty little bow. And I'll trim the ends off once I get it like I want it. And then we're going to just adhere the snowflake with just a drop of glue. Now, if you're going to actually put this in a stocking, you may want to package this in a cellophane bag just to protect the snowflake. And now that's done. How cute is that? Now, of course, we have to have some crafty giveaways today, so be sure to leave a comment on this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we will choose one random commenter to receive a $50 gift card to the MFT online store. And be sure to check back tomorrow for more holiday craft ideas. Thanks so much for watching.